Welcome back to the 2012 Veterans Day Parade. Here in the booth, we have a very special guest, the Homeland Security Secretary, Janet Napolitano. Madam Secretary, welcome.
Thank you very much for the great parade.
It's terrific. You know, before we talk veterans issues, we want to get your sense real quick. Rosanna and I and Paul, we've both been throughout New York City, devastated by the hurricane. We know you've been on Staten Island. You've been monitoring the efforts. How are we doing so far? Some communities still suffering.
Some communities still suffering. Staten Island, Queens, Long Island. Some places are incapable of receiving power back, but lots of people in here, lots of federal resources in here. The Corps of Engineers have been pumping out the tunnels. FEMA's been out putting housing together, offering individual assistance to people, hundreds of millions of dollars already given out. So we're going to continue full force as we move now into long-term recovery.
Madam Secretary, we really want to thank you for being here today because it really took a lot of effort to get here. Your plane broke down. And then we had to get you on a train, and that's not an easy thing considering, you know, security, right?
Yeah, that's all right, though. I enjoyed the train. It was good to see Amtrak was up and running today. You know, the tunnels are pumped out now. They're getting checked for their integrity because of the water that was in them. Corps of Engineers did a great job with that. Huge engineering task, by the way. So getting life back to normal, getting the normal rhythms back, and figuring out now where the long-term issues are going to be.
You know, we have 10 different cities that are joining us today on this telecast for this nation's parade. I think it's unbelievable how you've been able to marshal all the resources. People in Connecticut are having their power turned on by firms coming from as far away as Georgia.
Yeah, that's right.
California.
The Department of Defense was great. Leon Panetta said, whatever you need, you got. And one of the things we got were these large planes that the Department of Defense has, and we moved dozens and dozens of utility crews and their equipment from all over the United States into the greater area here, and they're still here.
The Department of Homeland Security did not exist a few years ago. It's relatively new. How do you work with the military?
Very closely. First of all, Coast Guard is part of the Department of Homeland Security, so we have an active branch. We have 50,000 plus veterans in the department. It's a quarter of our workforce. We're hiring more all the time. And yes, we link up with DOD on all kinds of things, particularly where domestic issues like the National Guard are concerned. So when we were working on this storm and coordinating response to the storm, DOD was right there as an active partner.
Right. And the Coast Guard sits with the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, the Coast Guard sits in the tank, as you know,
so
with the Joint Chiefs.
You're the only department that has a representation other than DOD on Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Office.
It's pretty cool, but it's also necessary. And the Coast Guard did literally hundreds of rescues post-hurricane, people that were caught in their houses, had not evacuated and what have you. So I think they coordinated upwards of 700 rescues.
As a New Yorker, you were born in this town, right here in Manhattan, right?
I was born here.
And now to be a part of the largest Veterans Day parade in the nation. What's it like from your perspective?
Oh, it's fabulous. A beautiful day. Hard to believe 2 weeks ago we had Hurricane Sandy. Then we had the nor'easter that came through. I know areas are still hurting. We're going to be here for the long term, but what a morale boost. And by the way, we ought to support our vets every way we can. They have served our country well.
One of the things that we announced today is that the veterans are now trying to support the people who have fallen on hard times by collecting coats.
Yeah.
And to give the kids in the shelters and all, so that they have at least warm clothes, because although this is a respite from it, it's going to get colder next week.
It's going to get cold. We can see the temperatures coming, particularly at night. Some houses still don't have power, don't have heat. What we're going to try to do is find temporary housing now for those people as decisions are made about what they do for the long term.
There was talk about prefab houses that FEMA was thinking about bringing in.
Yes.
What can we do? Because I know people who have given, they were wondering, how do they get involved with those prefab houses to, one, support it, and two, be a recipient of it?
Well, if you are qualified for assistance, what you need to do is register for FEMA so they can work with you on your housing needs. There's short-term, there's long-term. There's some temporary housing already on its way. It's coming by truckload up here to be placed. Local communities need to tell us what they need, where they want it to be, and then we work with them on that. But in the meantime, the state has already established a long-term housing task force. The federal government will be plugging into that, really, as you look to rebuild for the long term.
Janet Napolitano, there was just an election. The president was reelected. There's some talk of reshuffling his cabinet. Anything you can divulge about your future plans? Are you staying? Are you leaving?
You know, I'm just working. I think this hurricane has kind of absorbed my energies and will for a while. It's the #1 thing on my mind.
Well, we wish you luck with that, and we're really privileged to have you here. Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of the Homeland Security Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll be right back.
We're coming back with more celebrating